personality does this team carry? I think that's an interesting question. Who would you say?
Well, I mean, I think it is interesting because we both kind of agreed that it was Jimmy before. Like I mean, for better or worse, it was kind of Jimmy's team. And the personality right now, I mean, I think it actually resembles maybe Debo. Debo or Kittle, like kind of a cross between the two is the feeling I get from this team.
I was gonna say Fred Warner. Fred Warner talks so much. Fred Warner talks like he's the defensive coordinator. Fred Warner talks like he's the best player in the league and he's the defensive coordinator. And I mean, I'm not saying he talks out of turn, but wow, he talks a lot and he talks with a tremendous amount of authority. George Kittle talks a lot too. Those guys seem like he talks like he's the offensive coordinator. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like they almost feel like they call the shots on this team. So then you have Brandon Ayuk, whose personality is the opposite. Like Brandon Ayuk is very quiet. We just talked about him being like a wide receiver, but his personality is quiet, not super buddy. Like Kittle and Warner are, we're a family and we've been together, we love each other. Like Brandon Ayuk punched Fred Warner in front of everyone. Brandon Ayuk fought. Like Brandon Ayuk isn't like that. It's business with him. So I actually kind of like that personality, that tone that Brandon Ayuk sets. And I sort of wish the rest of the team had that personality because that kind of buddy fratty style that pervades the team, I'm not really a big fan of. And frankly, it makes me feel like I've compared him to the Memphis Grizzlies in the past. That's kind of it, sort of talking like champions when you're not. Fred Warner talks like he's a 5-time, like he's Steph Curry, like he's Klay Thompson, like he's Draymond Green. And yeah, he's really good, but man, I feel like probably people should take cues from Brandon Ayuk until they seal the deal. But it's a good question.
I actually agree with you a lot on this. I think if the team carried themselves more like Brandon Ayuk does, hell, I mean, to a certain extent, I feel like Trent Williams fits this mold a little bit too. I mean, Trent Williams can get crazy. I mean, you saw the way that he fought for his teammates at the end of that game to end the NFC Championship.
Physical. Jimmy Ward, fight.
Right.
Jimmy Ward would fight. It'd hit you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Fred
didn't talk a lot either.
Warner's tough. Fred Warner's a tough. I mean, and he's an ish talker for sure.
For sure.
But
for sure.
I do like the way that Brandon Ayuk goes about his business.
Stop being on Bussin' with the Boys. Stop being all up in the media. Stop singing at the NFL honors. Like, stop. Brandon Ayuk's not doing that. He's not searching for the spotlight. The spotlight will come to you when you win a Super Bowl. Like, knock it off. Because at a certain point, it becomes like a problem with the culture, in my opinion. Like, you guys are celebrating the wrong things and making excuses for not getting all the way. And it's like, you're settling for less when you should be striving for the best. I don't know. That's the way I look at it. So
yeah, and
you know what? That was my problem with
McGlinchey.
That was my problem with McGlinchey. It was not so much his play. It was the fact that he would play like that and then talk like he was the owner of the team. And he would be like, "We got to do this," and it's like, dude, you need to stop. Talk about yourself. I've never heard of a guy who was a captain that had the captainship taken away from him. Like, what? Like, it's too much of that with this team. Too much of people talking at length. And I'm not saying like I'm a journalist, give bad quotes. Just, like keep it within perspective and scope. Like talk about your job. Another thing with this team is so happy to say, we don't need a quarterback. We're that team that doesn't need a quarterback. Like they like the quarterback competition and uncertainty. What other team wants that? The Niners want it because you know who's the star then? Everyone else. Kittle, Juszczyk, Warner. On most teams, you know who the star is? The quarterback. And that's it. Not here. They love it. They freaking love it. And I think it's like they need to stop with that, man. You're not going to win a Super. You need to let a quarterback be a star.
Yeah. I think also it's because none of them, for the most part, unless they've come from other teams, Travarius Ward obviously had the benefit of playing with Patrick Mahomes, but unless you've come from one of those other teams, they haven't played with a great quarterback, so they don't know what it's like when you do actually have a great quarterback on this roster that can carry you and make up for some of the mistakes. yes, it's nice to be the team, I guess, that can get there regardless. But at some point, you got to get over the hump. And the only way you can do that is when you have the quarterback. And the 49ers may have that guy, but we don't know for sure. So, yeah, I don't know. I would prefer if the personality type was more of a Brandon Ayuk personality type, 100%.
Yeah. And Brandon Ayuk, I would describe his personality as it's business. There's an edge to him. There's an anger to him, like a seething anger. Like we haven't accomplished what we want to accomplish, and I will fight you in practice about it. We are not brothers. We're not family. This is a freaking business, and we haven't accomplished our goal. And I'm mad. I love that. There should be the frustration and anger with this team. They've been together 5, 6, 7 years, and they haven't accomplished their goal. And they're going around on podcasts and singing at award shows like, ugh, ugh, ugh. I don't like it. And I don't know whose personality, but I mean, Fred, you break down every single huddle, man. Like, tell people to stop. But you're the one on with busting with the boys, talking about how great, how things would have been different if Brock had been healthy and da-da-da. This excuse and that excuse. Nah, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Is that
I feel like they didn't have this.
Is that ultimately a Kyle Shanahan trait, though? Like maybe we're looking at the players, and maybe it is the personality of Kyle Shanahan. Ultimately,
Yeah, it is.
Like they're taking on the persona of their coach, who, I wear Yeezys.
Always has an excuse.
This
Always has an excuse.
It's not my fault. We don't need a quarterback. I'm a
Doesn't
great
need a
play
quarterback.
caller.
Yeah. They love it. They love it. It's the only team in the league that's like this. They look at themselves as like some kind of like rebel, bad boy, counterculture, playing the old school way, winning with defense and hitting and stuff. It's like, yeah, well, let me know when you ever win a Super Bowl this way, because I was on a show earlier today, and it was Rob Stats Guerrera, and he wanted to take me to task on my opinion about Kyle Shanahan. And you can say all the nice things you want about Kyle Shanahan, but as soon as it's my turn to talk and I start talking about the quarterback position, what do you say? There's no defense. Look at the list of people him and his dad have tried to acquire in the past 20 years. Now, if you give Kyle a quarterback, good things can happen. If he can inherit a legit, but if he's left to his own devices and he has to pick the guy, God forbid he's young. I mean, burden of proof is on him at this point. So I don't know how we got over here on this, but yeah, it is Kyle's personality. I think Kyle's gotten to this point. He loves the idea of being, you know what? Quarterback's overrated. All you need is a good scheme, some weapons, and a defense. I respectfully disagree. Quarterback really matters. Kind of.
Yeah, quarterback is everything in this league. I mean, that's why, I mean, you can walk me through why you think the Eagles are still the best team. I look at the Eagles and say, I don't know if they are the best team, but it's hard for me. Like if I'm building a team, I'm doing it. And we talked about this last week. Quarterback, protecting the quarterback, getting after the quarterback. That's the order that I'm going in. Yeah. And when I look at the Eagles, they're better at quarterback. They're better at protecting the quarterback. And say what you want about all the people that they lost on the defensive line, but they still have Graham, Reddick, Cox, and Jordan. That's a pretty formidable four that they can throw at you.
And so, and their first round pick last year, Jordan Davis. Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, they're not far. If they're behind on the defensive line, it's not far, but they're much better at quarterback and they're much better at protecting the quarterback. So the way that I build the team, they're better than. So it's hard for me to say that the 49ers are for sure better than the Eagles right now, who, again, yes, they lost a lot of pieces, but is that enough to close the gap? I don't know.
Man, again, this is a team that's real satisfied with itself, impressed with itself, but it hasn't made it back to the Super Bowl since 2019. And that year, that team was hungry. A lot of people felt they were ahead of schedule. Fred Warner hadn't gotten paid. Nick Bosa was a rookie. Debo was a rookie. Ayuk wasn't on the team. Like, a lot of these guys were hungry, had something to prove. Now, all these guys have gotten paid except Ayuk. All of them. And it's interesting. Like, is this group going to make it back to the Super Bowl? I don't know. I mean, now the Lions are in the mix. That's the next team. I mean, the Eagles aren't going away. The Lions are now really in the mix. They just had a phenomenal free agency. And Seattle's lurking too with a bunch of draft picks coming.
Man.
No,
they're not.
So I don't know. I mean, Hargrave's 30, Armstead's 30, Kittle's going to be 30. Like, this is a crucial year for this core.
Yeah, it definitely is. Grant, when we first started doing this show 2 years ago, I kept bringing up the Dan Marino quote. And a lot of people assume that you're just going to make it back because the team was young and the core was talented and all these other things. But Dan Marino said it. Hey, listen, I made it in my, what was his rookie year or second year, whatever. He's like, I thought I was going back every year. I never got back. I would have never, ever thought when I was young that would be possible. And then you look at George Kittle immediately in the aftermath of that Super Bowl, and you got that famous quote where the camera's on. I'll be back.
I'll be back. I will be back.
Will you be back?
You're almost 30, man.
It's not guaranteed.
Yeah. Now is the time. So I hope I'd like to see the Niners approach this whole season, off season, with urgency. Last year, I mean, the off season was a joke. Debo wasn't there. I mean, Trey was hung out to dry. It was him and Brandon Ayuk against the freaking world. Like this whole team needs to be there in OTAs, in minicamp, in training camp, and they need to be ready for week 1. Otherwise, I've seen this play before. Seen it. The last 2 seasons were freaking the same. The same. With different characters and different twists, but the same ending. So I'd like to see something different this
year. We need to see the players working out with Trey Lance, Debo specifically, Kittle specifically. Ayuk's already done it. And if Brock Purdy ends up starting, great. But right now, Brock Purdy can't throw. So we got to be under the assumption that Trey Lance is the starter. Work out with this guy. Get on the same page.
You know what I don't like to see? I don't like seeing Trey Lance on Instagram saying, can I get some high school and college wide receivers to work out with me?
Yeah,
bro, where are your teammates? Where are your teammates?
Right.
Why do you have to do that? And I'm not faulting Trey. I'm like, if I were his wide receiver teammates, I'd call him up and say, dude, what the hell are you doing? Why don't you call me? I'm there. But I don't know what's going on with this team.
Yeah. Also, the one thing, and I understand, like, Debo came in out of shape last year, and I really, truly do understand the reasons why. He couldn't risk anything. He's going for a big I get all of that. But the one quote that I can't get out of my head is when he was asked about working out with Trey, he said something along the lines of, like, I'll be in Miami. If you want to work out with me, you got to come to me. Like, bro, you're a wide receiver. You are not the player, man. Like,
also, what is your goal, Debo? What is your goal? This is your prime. This is your goal. Go win a Super Bowl. Like, you should be on a mission right now. And he's like, I'll be in Miami. Like, okay, cool. Miami's a lot of fun. I would want to hang out there too. Ryan Hensley says, personality-wise, which player in the Niners are you two most like? You have to answer for each other.
Grant, you're not going to like this.
Who?
You're George Kittle.
That sucks. Ugh. That's a real slap in the face. All right, let me get you back for that. All right, you are. I'm gonna piss you off right now.
You got it?
You off. You're Brock Purdy.
Oh, come on.
I got him.
Nah, I like Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's a man of the Lord. He's humble but confident. I like it. I actually
stepped right in. Stepped right in. Absolutely. Yep. I like the good question, Ryan. George Kittle.
No, it's a really good question. I know that. You know what though? Here's the funny thing: is a lot of people don't like the people that are most like them, and Kyle Shanahan, I think there's a lot of similarities there. And George Kittle, just from the standpoint that you're on everybody's show. You're on everybody's radar. You can't turn on YouTube 49ers without seeing that face right next to me. It's the same thing with the 49ers, man. I can't do anything 49ers without seeing George Kittle. You know what I mean? So
it's true. He's been the face of the team since he's pretty much been on it. That Niner guy says, I don't know if they want it. They are just conditioned for it. Sure. Lucky Luciano says, Grant, I love your work, but I won't let speak ill of Fred Warner. McGlinchey is as soft as Charmin. I'm not speaking ill of Warner.
I don't think he is.
I'm just saying the whole team went on a whole press junket starting in the Super Bowl, and I just didn't like it. I thought it was eventually it was like enough. And it wasn't just, it was Debo too. Ayuk went on who was it? Brad Grams.
Yeah.
He's like Jimmy Ward. I mean, he's not trying to be on people's podcasts. I'm sure Brad reached out and Ayuk was like, yeah, I'm not doing anything. Yeah, you've seen Ayuk at Warrior games. He's not trying to be noticed. I like that about him.
Yeah, but even then, he was like, if you watch that interview, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but shout out to Brad. I'm
Yeah.
sure it was a great interview, but he's leaned back. He's got this hoodie on. He's not trying to show his face. He's just like, listen, I'm a humble guy, but he's very confident, very, very confident in who he is. And he's also willing to talk a little trash and be honest.
He's a lot like Jimmy Ward. He's a lot like he'll come on your show and talk, but he's not trying to be a media darling. He's not a self-promoter. Although, again, Brandon Ayuk is angry and he will fight you. I like that about Brandon. He punched him in the face, man. In the face. It was great. I loved it. J. Mark Garza says, four-headed monster leads his team. Trent, Debo, Kittle, Fred, agree. Be more like Ayuk, Jennings, Greenlaw, Huff. Yeah.
There you go.
Except minus the Greenlaw.
Although penalty. I would throw Trent in there too. I don't mind being like Trent.
Yeah, Trent needs to stop tipping plays. Eric says, Bill Walsh, champions behave like champions before they're champions. Kyle acts like he's a champion, but needs to have a humble mindset, but he never will. Yeah, he needs some humility, man. His intellectual arrogance is by far the biggest thing that holds him back. He's convinced he's a genius. He's surrounded himself with people who say he's a genius. And I just don't think that's healthy. But none of us can ever relate to that. I mean, honestly, I know I'm a very successful, handsome person, but people don't fawn over me like they fawn over Kyle. It's hard to believe. I know. Look at me. And I'm married too. It's great. Monsatori says, Coach Narcissism Personality, Cabo Click-ish. Coach Narcissism's personality. You call him Coach Narcissism now?
Mm.
He's also very sensitive. That's the thing about Kyle. He comes across as like brash and he'll like argue with you, but he's deep down a very sensitive guy. He doesn't want to be criticized. And he cares what you think about him. I think
the people that are most outwardly arrogant are the ones that are the most like really take things to heart deep down.
He
like
really cares
alone.
What you think.
Yeah.
And when like the person at the deli counter at Safeway tells him what to do and he says, please leave me alone, what he's really thinking is, do you like me? Do you think I'm doing a good job? Miguel says, some people in this team act like they've won the Super Bowl, especially George Kittle. It's annoying. Who are they to have a say on who's the quarterback 0-3? Am I 0-3? Is this Jose? Is he calling me 0-3 right now? It's not funny.
That is actually really
funny. You
funny.
can't say 0-3 in this. Stop. Tyler says, Grant, do you think this team thinks that their majority wins and the minority loses? What I mean by that, I don't think this team doesn't play like an actual team. They're a bunch of individuals. I mean, they've set themselves up where when they win, it's all of them. And after the game, you get to talk to all the stars. When they lose, it's the quarterback's fault. That's how this team is built. And again, do you really want to set up a culture where the quarterback is the fall guy? Really? I mean, it worked for the Ravens 25 years ago, but football's changed, man.
So much. Yeah, it's changed way too much. I don't necessarily think that they don't play like a team. I just think, I think maybe it's a misguided team.
Andrew says, when you ask a regular person which team is better than the other, the quarterback for the team generally is the deciding factor.
Yes.
Yeah, but the Niners live in this other world where that's not. Like when they were in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, I just picked the Chiefs because they had Mahomes. And people had all these other reasons to pick the Niners. And I was like, yeah, those are great reasons, but quarterback on that team. And then look at quarterback on this team. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. J. Mark Garza says, with Kyle, it feels like we are the Marino Dolphins. One Super Bowl loss never gets over the top. I wasn't there.
That's what I'm saying, man.
I keep comparing him to Dungy's Bucks. Defense,
and I think that's
stacked.
Very fair comparison. Dungy.
Yeah.
I talked about this on your show, but Dungy, the reason they moved on from him is because he was, I want to always be competitive and in the conversation guy, not I'm trying to win this year guy. And I think that Kyle Shanahan is very similar. And I understand that mindset from the standpoint of, hey, if you're there enough, you'll eventually break through is the mindset. And maybe that's true, but also that you got to pick your point to just say, hey, F it, we're going all in right now, period. We got to make it happen.
As a Portland Trailblazers fan, you know that's not true. Like there are teams that can reach a certain level and never get past it, ever.
Yeah.
There's something fatally flawed with the equation.
Yeah,
And
the Blazers
I'm
were in the
wondering,
playoffs like 20-something straight years and never did anything.
they had some years where they were really like, did they ever win 50, 60 games? I mean, yeah, right? When GK went on Theo Von's podcast, who's Theo Von? Was he one of the
is a
boys who
comedian.
busses it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was it funny? Bet.
I didn't watch the whole thing. I just saw bits and pieces. That's somebody had posted today about, I think it actually was Brad. It posted today a quote from it where Kittle said that fans don't realize that when they say mean things on social media, like it can impact us type of thing. I don't know.
Oh, well, sure. Lucky Luciano says more like Andy Reid's Eagles. Yeah, but that team always had a quarterback. That's all I'm saying. So this is a difference. When people compare Kyle to Andy Reid, like Andy Reid actually always has the quarterback taken care of. That's never his issue.